welcome. I'm Carmelita Zandi with the Morlock Foundation, and I would like to start overcoming obstacles by introducing Mike Bolani from the Western New York Food Bank and having him come on up and say a few words about CMV.
Thank you, Carmelita. How about a round of applause for this young lady? Carmelita, I'm with the Food Bank of Western New York, and Carmelita is one of 330 member agencies we have, and what she does is just really, she's walking in the Lord's footsteps in doing what she's doing to help feed the hungry. And it shows, being out here in Clarence, New York, that hunger is touching all parts of our community. And it is just a fabulous story of what's going on there and what's going on here. And for all of you that are here this morning, you should have a pad and paper or a good memory, because you're going to hear some messages here today that certainly proves that the Lord works in interesting ways through a lot of different individuals. I was a former general manager of the Buffalo Bisons, and in 1992, a car hit me from behind, and I was left for dead on the side of the road. And the Lord came over me, a true miracle. And then I went through 17 hours of trauma surgery, 44 days in ECMC. But my life changed like that. And from the high level, traveling in private planes and being around all types of people, I was now in a hospital bed. And my life was changed, and it was through the power of prayer that I realized what my true mission in life was, and that is now to help others. And I'm doing that through the food bank. But 10 years ago, the gentleman you're going to hear from today, Sammy V, is going to tell you how his life was changed and what he's doing now. It's a phenomenal story. He's a phenomenal individual who has and realizes that the Lord is walking through his life and that he's merely a disciple of the Lord. And what he has done here has been able to help people of all ages. One of the things that he does is every Thursday for the last 10 years, he donates his time to the Compass House in Buffalo, that is a home for kids that are thrown out of their homes or runaways. They have a place to stay and get their life turned around a little bit, and Sammy V is their inspiration. Every Thursday, he's there for dinner with them, a message, and then he stays and plays in the recreation room with them and bonds with them. And he has had many people come up to him and send him letters and call him and says, Sammy, you have saved my life. So with that, I'd like to introduce Sammy Violani, better known as Sammy V. Sammy?
Well, first of all, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Since this is such a little intimate group, and Mike and Carmi's going to know this, we're not going to use this at all because I'm going to interact. I'm just going to move this over, is it okay? Maybe I'll use this to put a couple of my things up here. So, okay. That's good. All right, so, first of all, again, good morning. Thank you, Carmi, for inviting me, and Mike, thanks for that nice little introduction. Today's going to be a situation where this is not going to be a lecture. There's no PowerPoint here. There's not even a microphone. It's going to be me talking to you a little bit about my story. But much more importantly, there's going to be some amazing life lessons. So when Mike mentioned about a pad and pencil or so, there's only going to be one little homework assignment we're going to have. And since we have such a small, intimate group, I'm going to ask you at the end of my little talk for your personal takeaway. All right? What you picked up from my little talk today. All right? Has anyone ever heard of a school called Philip Sheridan School? I'm sure you've heard of Kenmore Mercy Hospital, right? Okay? That's near the corner of Elmwood and Sheridan. There's actually a St. Andrew's Church on one corner. The hospital's a little bit more down Elmwood. And on the other side of that intersection, there's a Wilson Farm that's now a 7-Eleven. And if you go 3 blocks toward the Youngman, away from the hospital, that would be north on Elmwood, toward the Youngman, on the corner of Elmwood and Coventry, there's this amazing little elementary school called Philip Sheridan. Now that's where I grew up. I was born in 1953. About 8 months ago, I hit the big 6-0, and I'm a baby boomer, all right? Before the age of computers, we spent thousands and thousands of hours in this playground. This was my sanctuary. This is where I played ball with all my friends. And from 5 years old to 19, that was my second home. And in there was an amazing part of my life because at 17 years old, I was running a basketball camp. And they called it the Sammy V Basketball Camp. And I was teaching kids how to play basketball, how to box out, how to play defense, behind the back passes, all that kind of fun stuff, Jeremiah. And I was teaching these kids much more than basketball, but I was too young to understand what a teacher, a coach, and a mentor was all about. Now, I was so convinced this is what I wanted to do the rest of my life that I told my guidance counselor at Kenmore West, 1971, I said, Mr. De Niro, you've got to come down to the playground, and you've got to see what's going on. Mr. D's looking at me, he says, Sammy, what do you got going? I said, you've got to come down to the playground. Now, he happened to live in the area, and 2 weeks later, Mr. D actually shows up to the Philip Sheridan playground. And I want to say this in a very humble way, but he saw the magic of me with these kids. Now, anyone that's ever been a mother, a teacher, there's a connection that these little ones are looking at. And what it is, they're actually looking for hope, belief. They're looking for someone to believe in. They're looking for someone for some guidance, some direction. But again, I was a teenager. I was too young to understand that. But Mr. D saw me with these kids, and there was a synergy, there was a chemistry going on. And he goes, Sammy, you have found something that's very, very unique. 2 weeks later, we're back in his guidance office. And he goes, Sammy, here's the deal. He goes, do you want me to help you follow your passion, or do you want me to help you find a job? I go, Mr. D, I want both. But here was the problem. They probably are still doing this today. It was the early 1970s, and they said, Sammy, teachers are a dime a dozen. There's too many teachers. There's a huge glut of teachers, and you're probably not going to be able to stay in Buffalo. You're probably going to have to move out of the area to find a good job. I go, Mr. D. He goes, Sammy, you're going to get buried in the job market. I go, well, what do you think? He goes, well, look, you're vice president of student government at Kenmore West. You got great communication skills. Why don't you take your communication skills and why don't you go into the business world? Sales, marketing, PR. You'd be great at that. Now again, I was too young to understand what this was all about. But what I did do is I ended up going to the University of Buffalo. All right, UB. So basically, elementary was Philip Sheridan, Hoover Middle, Kenmore West, and UB. I'm a Buffalo guy my whole life, all right? I want to teach you a concept that I learned that's very, very powerful. The term is what's called the modeling and mirroring approach. Model/mirror. Let me explain how that works. So, if, for example, I don't study at Kenmore West, I don't apply myself, I don't basically, lock in with the teachers, learn how to take the tests and all that, I'm probably about a 75 to 80 student. Not great. Passing, but not great. But by modeling and mirroring the top students, learning how the best students did their homework, how they studied, how they interfaced with the teachers, how they did their homework, I became a 93 average National Honor Society at Kenmore West. See, we in life, we try to reinvent the wheel. Life is not that complicated. We as human beings, we overcomplicate it. My concept is this. Find something that you love to do, and let's go talk to the people that are already very successful in what you want to do. All right? My sister Loretta became one of the most successful nurses at Sisters Hospital. How? I taught her how to network with the top nurses. If you learn from the best, you can be the best. Now, why this is important is that my journey at Kemmer West, I become a star student because of networking, because of modeling and mirroring. When I went to UB, I'm only a 2.2 average without studying, without applying myself. I did the same concept at UB that I did at Kemmer West, and I become a 3.67 Dean's List by learning, modeling, and mirroring from the best. Does everyone understand this concept, what I'm doing? Very few people do it. We have successful people all around us. All we have to do is know how to ask questions. All right, so now I'm at UB, marketing and finance. I do not have a doctorate degree. I'm not a plumber. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a CPA. I basically have a door opener as a degree. Business management at the University of Buffalo. I interviewed with a lot of companies, about a dozen companies, and after all these interviews, this is like 1975, 76 now, I get 3 big job offers. IBM, General Motors, and Xerox. Salary, potential bonus, potential pension. Now remember now, it's 1976, all right? So I was about to take one of these jobs that would make my parents very, very happy. I'm now 22 years old, and they're saying, Sammy, you got to get out there and make some money. We've been spending a lot of money on you. The parents know all about that, right? Son of a gun, you got to get out there and do something. But you know what happened? I saw this ad at the University of Buffalo Placement and Guidance Office. And it was a fluorescent colored sheet of paper. Yellowish oranges. I'll never forget this. But here's what it said. It said, join the exciting world of investment sales. Opportunity to make $50,000 or more a year. Contact Robert Caffey, First Jersey Securities, 881-5900. Now guys, it was 38 years ago. And I remember it just like that. And I'm not sure what was the $50,000, Carmi. I'm not sure what was the investment world. I'm not sure what was the fluorescent colored sheet of paper. But I said to myself, I got to go talk to Bob. Before I take these other jobs, Lindsay, I got to go talk to Bob, right? And so I go and talk to Bob. Now I go to 556 Franklin Street. Corner of Franklin and North, big Victorian home. And I'm driving over there. And I park my car, and I'm now walking in the parking lot. And as I walk to the parking lot, I'm walking past Mercedes, Cadillacs, Jaguars, Porsches, BMWs. I'm thinking, what are these guys doing? I'm also thinking, is it legal? What the heck's going on here, right? So now I go in, and I meet Bob Caffey, 1976. Now at the time, you know, you could smoke in an office. He had this big cigar. Think about a typical stockbroker, heavy-set guy, glasses. And just like you guys are checking me out, like, who the heck is this Sammy V? Why would Carmi invite me in the middle of this church like this? What is this all about? And he's looking at me just like you're looking at me. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, he goes, Sammy, there's something about you. You got some fire about you. You got some passion. You got some great, great energy. And he said, look, we can teach you about stocks and bonds, but you've got that factor, that it factor. And he said to me something that changed my life. He said to me, I'm not here to offer you a job today. I'm here to offer you a way of life. And he said to me, And it's a question I'm going to pose to you right now. He said, how would you like to control your own destiny? All right, who wants to help me with this one? What does that mean? Let me do the role play. You're sitting down with a hiring manager, male or female, a job interview. And he or she says to you, you can control your own destiny. What does that mean? Can someone help me? What does that mean? Control your own destiny. We got some, okay, good. This is good. What does it mean?
It means that you can do what you want to do instead of what other people want you to do.
What's your name? Sam? You got a great first name. That's phenomenal. You don't have to, not when other people do what you want to do, right? Ask, what else? What else does it mean? Control your own destiny. Controlling how much money you make. Gee, that sounds pretty good, especially for a 22-year-old, right? All right? So controlling your own destiny, controlling your own money, you do what you want to do. Anyone else want to take a shot? Control your own destiny. What else does it mean? How about this? Be your own boss. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, what's the catch? It sounds pretty good. What's the catch? I go, Bob, come on. He goes, Sammy, what are you looking at right now? And listen, this will be pretty cool for you because you're kind of like in this world where you're coming out of high school, looking at these different jobs. This is where I was kind of going, right? And I told him about these different jobs I was looking at. All right? I told him about the salary. I talked about the bonus. I talked about potential pension. And here's what he said to me that flipped my world around. Now, maybe he was the classic salesperson, but here's what he said to me. He goes, Sammy, how are you going to feel? No matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you bust hump every day and you're out there hustling every day, he goes, how are you going to feel that the person next to you in the company makes about the same amount of money that you do, and you're working 3 times faster and harder than he is? It's an interesting point, isn't it? See, when you're on salary, someone else is writing your check. When you're on an hourly wage, you're an employee for someone else. Now, I'm not knocking it. 95% of the world workforce is working for somebody else, and they're writing your check. He basically said, no, Sammy, if you're good enough, you write your own check. Bob, what's the catch? Here's what he said. He goes, Sammy, this position has no salary and it has no hourly wage. Sam's looking at me like, what's this all about, right? And I'm thinking the same thing. He goes, Sammy, the only way that you're going to make money is 100% commissions. Does anyone know what that means? 100% commissions?
You're making money off of someone else's money.
Exactly. Can I ask what your first name is?
Sharon.
Sharon, thanks. You're making money off someone else's money. So I had to learn how to go talk to people that have a lot of money because I get a piece of that action. That's how it works. But I'm thinking, wow, my mom and dad are not going to be too happy about this. Because my dad, who died 5 years ago at 94 years old, Mario Michael Violani from Niagara Falls, the tough Sicilian, he'd be mad at me for 22 years, Sharon. 22 years, and I'm going to go take a job, Jeremiah, with no hourly wage and no salary. He's going to say, Sammy, what are you, crazy? I raised you for all these years, and you're going to go into something that has all of this risk to it? But you know what? My dad taught me something in my first 22 years. He said, Sammy, life is too short to wait too long. Life is not a dress rehearsal. You only got one shot. And he said to me, Sharon, he said, it's not mom's life, it's not dad's life, it's not your sister's life. It's not your brother's life. It's your life. Now, he did say to me, and I'll never forget it, man. We had a fight in the kitchen one day. It was crazy. My poor mother, Angie, she's in the corner of the kitchen table. You know, she was the quiet one, right? She was the nurturer, the lovely Italian mom. And my dad's the fireman. He's in that kitchen, and we're going back and forth. But he said to me, Sammy, look at, I would rather you take the security. Go slower, but build something. Who the hell knows about these crazy stockbrokers? So he told me. I go, Dad, I gave him a dose of his own medicine. Life is too short to wait too long. You told me, Dad, it's not my life, your life, it's my life. And so, at 22 years old, I got into a crazy business. The business was all about this statement. The statement is, if it's to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to me. Now, there's a lot of pressure to that. That meant that I had to get my butt out of that bed every morning, get in that office, make the calls, go see the people, make the sales, keep going, keep going, keep going. It's a very addictive business. It's also a very self-centered business. If it's to be, it's up to me. Has anyone ever seen the movie The Wolf of Wall Street? No, okay. Well, that movie illustrates the addictive business that the stockbroker's business is all about. Now remember, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to work with kids. There I am now, Sharon, I'm in a whole different world. But I'm going to tell you something. From 22 years old to my mid-40s, what I have learned can write volumes and volumes of life lessons. Now, remember I told you about modeling and mirroring? All right? As a student, that's how I became successful. What if I told you that little old Sammy V from the Tonawanda, who wanted to be a teacher, grew up right outside the Sheridan Park projects? What if I told you by modeling and mirroring the top stockbrokers, learning from the best, Sam, how they did the profession? What if I told you that I rose to become the #1 investment broker in the entire country for the old Empire of America bank program? Now, most of the audience here is not going to remember the Big E and Buffalo Savings Banks. Today, most of those banks are now Key Bank. You're going to remember, Sharon, right? Of course. Remember Burgers and M&A's? I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But most of those banks today are Key Bank and M&T. Now, in my journey, I worked for E.F. Hutton for many years, and then I was with Dean Witter, which is part of Morgan Stanley. But back in the mid-'80s, I made a very controversial move. I went into a new bank program. The Northtown Plaza, Burgers, M&A's, Alberta Drive, Alice's Kitchen, right? You know what I'm talking about over there? All right, there's a big bank branch there when you drive by them. Near Tom's. It's still, okay. Do you know what that big bank is today? It's a big bank. Key Bank. Very good. Can I ask you what your first name is?
Lisa.
Lisa, thanks. That's a Key Bank. Years ago, there was a Big E, and that's where I was. In the mid-'80s to early '90s, I worked in that branch as a stockbroker in the middle of a very, very lucrative area because it drew on North Buffalo, Kenmore, the Tonawandas, Eggertsville, Williamsville, Snyder. That's why the Boulevard Mall is where it is. It's never going to leave there because that's you know the Niagara Falls Boulevard, right? Just like Transit Road out this way. Those are some huge areas. But there I was as a broker in that bank. Now, what did I do in that bank? What I did is I trained the tellers. The tellers are the people behind, right? And then the platform people are the people at the desks. I trained them how to refer business to me. Now, one of my skill sets that I learned is I am a natural born motivator. I am a teacher. I am a coach. I love to inspire people. And I had 8 to 10 girls in that branch that I developed a huge referral machine by teaching them how to refer. Does that make sense? Okay. What I built a clientele of 1,200 investment accounts. 1,200 investment accounts. I was hobnobbing in country clubs going after multi-million-dollar people. The Tom Golisanos of the world, the Paul Snyders of the world, the Robert Rich Jr.'s are the type of people that I sat down with. I was in a whole different world. And there I was. And I'm only going to share this with you, not because I'm trying to impress you, but when you're on 100% commission, it's all about money. And I tell you that 20, 25 years ago, I was already at $150,000 to $200,000 a year. 20, 25 years ago. Can I tell you, in the middle of my heyday, I bought myself a brand new 1989, okay? I bought myself a brand new midnight blue Cadillac Eldorado with Sammy B license plates. Remember I told you about if it's to be, it's up to me? Self-centered world, ego-driven world, greed, power. That's what I was in. And I was flourishing in that environment for many years. I married a model for a wife. I had this amazing home in Williamsville. I had a Florida home. I had the boat. I had all these amazing things. And I thought, especially from a male perspective, Sharon, it couldn't get any better. Imagine going to the top of my field. I was named in the early 1990s as the #1 investment broker in the entire country. Now, there's an amazing twist to my story. And obviously, there's a big reason why I'm here today. I'm going to tell you, if I didn't get sick, if I didn't burn out, if I did not suffer the levels of adversity that I'm about to share with you, I never would have left that business. That's why, if you had seen the movie, and I would recommend you go see the movie. There's some kind of weird parts in there, but there's some good parts from a standpoint of it talks a lot about the addiction. And I was in a very addictive business. And I suffer from an addiction. Not drugs, not alcohol, not sex. I suffer from the addiction of power, greed, entitlement, and money. Self-centered world. And unfortunately, the big challenge today is that's the world that we kind of live in. Whether it's the internet, whether it's print, whether it's radio, whether it's TV, it cultivates, fosters an environment of going out there, buying the big home, making the big money, having all these toys. That was the world I was in. And I wouldn't have left it. I would not have left it, but something happened to me in the early 1990s that turned my whole life around. I started to exhibit symptoms of excessive doubting and checking that took over my life. For example, let me give you a little bit of role play, okay? This is kind of like how my day was. 7:30, 8 o'clock, I'm running from the house to my car. And as I run into the car, my brain would say, Sammy, are you sure you locked the door of the house? And I went back, and I had to check the door lock of the house. I'm going back to my car, my brain's going, Sammy, are you sure you locked the door of the house? And I had to go back to the door. Then I'm thinking, what about the thermostat? What about the answer machine? What about the stove light? What about the garage door? In the early 1990s, right around 40 years old, I started to exhibit an excessive amount of doubting and checking. Doubting and checking. Very, very intense, repetitive behavior. Let me ask a question. I'm sure every audience I go, they know the answer to this question. What mental health disorder am I talking about? Sam's got his hand up. I don't see. Today, I was diagnosed in 1992, Jeremiah. No one even knew about this disorder. Today, I don't even get the statement out. Sam, what disorder am I talking about? OCD. Everyone knows about OCD today. 22 years ago, I was diagnosed. It was a closet disorder. It's still considered one of the most debilitating, destructive disorders that you possibly could have. Why? Because your brain, it's caused by an altered brain chemistry that's producing very intense doubting obsessions. And your brain is telling you, Sammy, you did not lock that door, you have to go back. Although you just locked that door and you're going to your car, your brain is saying, no, Sammy, you got to go back. That door's not locked. OCD is one of the most difficult, and as I just said, debilitating diseases out there. Let me give the statistics. You guys can check this out if you want. Only 2% of the world's population ever get OCD to level that I have it. And I'm taking ownership of it. I'm accountable to it. Now, why is it only 2%? Because from 1992, Sharon, to almost 2004, what if I told you in 8 to 10 hours of my waking hours, almost all the time I was waking, okay? I was paralyzed by excessive doubting and checking. At one time, it took me over a half an hour just to get out of my house. Then when I finally got to the office, remember I told you I was managing 1,200 investment accounts? I was shuffling papers. I couldn't get things done. Because the doubting, as I'm trying to do, let's say Lindsay and I were doing a transaction, and she just gave me $25,000 to invest. And now as I'm going through all the paperwork, which I could do effortlessly before, now I'm struggling to get it done. And they're looking at me like, what's wrong with Sam? OCD robbed me of the ability to do what I did best for over 20-some years. I'm about to share with you what I call the devastation part of my journey. I was married for 4 years, and my first wife, after seeing me exhibit these symptoms for only 3.5 months, I'll never forget it. She was withdrawing from me. I mean, she must have heard of OCD. I had just heard of OCD. I was overwhelmed with OCD. But on Christmas Eve of that year, she came home from work crying hysterically. And she said, Sammy, I'll always love you. You're an amazing guy. You got fire, you got passion. You got more positive attitude than anyone I'd ever met. But she said, I didn't realize marriage was going to be this tough. And I was trying to process that, Sharon. I didn't quite understand what that meant. She goes, Sammy, I don't think I want to be married anymore. And on January 17th, 3 weeks later, my best friend, the future mother of my kids, my wife, my soulmate, gave up on me. And I suffered probably one of the greatest devastations maybe any human being could suffer, probably a man. I stood at the head of my driveway, and she backed out of her car. On a cold, dark, dismal January 17th. It was about 15 degrees outside. I was crying hysterically. I was overwhelmed with emotion. And I couldn't believe that my best friend, my wife, decided to give up on me when I needed her the most. From 1992 to 2004, those 12 years, I went through 18 different doctors, 14 different medications, in and out of hospitals, in and out of treatment centers, in and out of rehab facilities, in and out of doctor's offices. My life was completely out of control. And a very big part of my story, I want you to hear this very, very closely. I lost the ability to believe in my own recovery. I'm going to repeat it again. I lost the ability to believe in my own recovery. 2 years after being named the #1 investment broker in the entire country, I got fired, terminated from M&T Bank Securities. And on the termination notice for Samuel Anthony Violante, it read verbatim, unable to perform minimal job functions adequately. Did you hear what I just said? I lost the ability to perform, Sam, a minimal job task of what I did effortlessly for many, many years. My OCD took my marriage, my OCD took my profession, but much bigger than the marriage and much more than the profession, Sharon, I lost Sammy for many years. My self-identity, my self-esteem, and my self-worth was tied into being that very successful investment broker. See, what's interesting in our world, we attach a lot of how we look at ourselves, how we define ourselves, on what we do every day. When you lose how you're defined, all of a sudden, life takes an amazing twist. And for many, many years, I went into a major depression. Why? The reason why people get depressed, they're focusing on the things that they don't have versus what they do have. That's a setup for disaster. Major depression, major black hole. All these doctors were telling me, Sammy, we can help you. We're going to turn this around. And you know what? I didn't see it. And remember I told you about modeling and mirroring? Okay. The reason why I was a successful student is I modeled and mirrored the best students. Are you with me? The reason why I was a successful stockbroker is I modeled and mirrored the best stockbrokers. Are you with me? Now OCD comes in and rears its ugly head. The reason why most people, whether it's mental health, drugs, alcohol, or substance abuse, and all of the above, why they're dealing with this for years, because deep down inside, they don't believe that they truly can recover. Here's my question to you. How how can you possibly believe that you can recover from anything if you don't see another peer, someone that's rocking and rolling in the same boat as you are, actually doing it? That's what the whole peer movement is all about. You're never going to believe that you totally recovered until you see other people actually doing it. And for many years, I tried to find that person. And I didn't realize it, but that door just kept closing and closing. My dad, who for many years I didn't have much of a relationship with. Why? He worked 2 jobs. It's kind of a crazy story. It's a whole other seminar. My dad worked 24 different jobs. The tough Sicilian is to go into these bosses and tell them off. And he lost many jobs. All these jobs he lost because his pride and his ego and his temperament was out of control. But one thing my dad, to this day, why he left an indelible mark, I'm going to tell you what he did. And I'm not going to say this is fatherhood 101, because they probably would call it abuse today. But let me tell you what happened. There I am on the couch in Williamsville with all my medications. I'm curled up in a major depression. My dad used to come over from the Tonawanda, where I grew up, down Sheridan Drive, make the left on North Forest, and he's come to visit me about 2 or 3 times a week. And for the first 2 or 3 years, what I didn't realize, it was always tearing a hole in my dad's heart. Because he looked at me as the #1 son, Mr. Success, right? And there I am, all curled up on the couch, zoned out. And you know what? The fathers of yesteryear, maybe they even this today, he didn't know how to say, Sammy, I love you. What he did, he'd go out and cut my lawn. He'd go out and shovel my driveway. You know, after 2 or 3 years, one day my dad comes in and he was loaded for bear. I'll never forget it. He comes in the house. He goes, Sammy, what the hell are you doing? I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of watching you. You can't sit on that couch. You got to get out there and do something. Now, let me qualify this. At the time, my dad's 85, and I'm 47. My dad was 38 years older than I was. This is not a 27-year-old dad and a 7-year-old son. This was an 85-year-old father and a 47-year-old son. And he's basically saying, Sammy, I can't go until I see you get yourself off that couch. I go, Dad, I'm following the doctors. I'm doing the treatment. I'm doing exactly everything they told me to do. He goes, Sammy, it's not good enough. He goes, look, I'm pushing 90 years old. Your mom's not going to live too much longer. And then he said to me something that really rattled my cage. He goes, do you think your sister Loretta's going to take care of you? I go, no, Dad. He goes, do you think your brother Nick's going to take care of you? No. Sammy? The only person that's going to take care of you is the person on the other side of that mirror. Who's he talking about? You. It's one of the world's greatest life lessons. You can have the best mom or dad, the best teacher, the best priest, the best minister, the best pastor. But guess what? When it's all said and done, you got to do it. And so there I was, muddled, buried in depression. And another day he comes in the house, and this is the fatherhood 101. He grabs me by the collar. He takes me over to the bathroom of my home. He goes, Sammy, there's only one person. There's only one person who's going to take care of you, and it's the person on the other side of that mirror. And if you doubt any of this, if you think any of this is something that you don't believe in, he said to me, Sandy, what did your best friend do to you? What did your wife, what did the future mother of your kids, what did the top person in your life do to you, the closest person in your life do to you when you got sick? And now I'm crying, Sharon, because he's got me. He left an indelible mark. Because basically what he's saying to me is, Sammy, if the closest person in your life can take off on you, all bets are off. All bets are off. And I'm thinking, wow, my dad's right. That turned the chessboard around considerably. Because what I started to do now is I started to attack my OCD. Let me ask you a question. Does anyone know what the difference between being proactive and being reactive? Who wants to help me with that one? Being proactive versus reactive.
React.
Go ahead. We got something. Go ahead, Lisa.
Proactive is before something happens, and reactive is after.
Okay, good. You want to? Okay. Now, let me ask you a very interesting question. In this game of life, what percentage of people do you believe are reacting to a situation versus proacting? What do you think? 95%. See, proact means to initiate. Initiate before it happens, right? Reacting is basically waiting for things to happen. Are these chairs? Oh, is there a loose chair? Oh, no. Not one loose chair. Okay. Is there a loose chair?
Way over
Over
there.
there? All right, hold on a second. Hold that tape, Jeremiah. I want to show you something, guys. Carmen, you never thought this would be all part of the presentation, did you? Okay, so why I'm doing this because you're never going to forget this. Where I learned it from? Does anyone remember the great comedian Bill Cosby? All right, so here's what he showed the audience. If you're sitting down in the game of life and you're reacting, you might as well be sitting on your hands. Why? Because you're not going to make a move until the situation causes you to make the move. That's reacting versus proacting. Proacting, Sam, means to get your butt off the chair and attack the situation. Get out of the chair and initiate. We just said that 95% of people in the game of life are probably reacting. Another one we ask about is this. What does the word settle mean? S-E-T-T-L-E. Settle. So if I said, Lindsay, I think you're settling in the game of life. Is that a compliment?
No.
Who wants to define the word settle for me? It has to do with in life. If you're settling, what are we doing?
You're content with where you are in life.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Content on where you are. Anyone else want to take a shot at it?
Taking less than you deserve.
Oh, Sharon. Taking less than what you deserve. Let me ask you a question. Can you reach your highest potential in the game of life if you settle? Now we're going to ask the classic question again. What percentage of people do you believe in the game of life are settling in some shape or form? Job, relationship, how they're navigating life, how they deal with their brothers or sisters, all of the above. What percentage of people do you think are settling in some shape or form?
100.
It's so high, it's probably approaches 100%. One of the things I want to teach you today, you can take this for what it's worth, but I think you need to eradicate, remove the word settle in your dictionary. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I'm going to say this. Remember I told you I was in a major black hole, a major depression. Guys, I didn't think my life was worth anything because I told you I lost my marriage, I lost my profession, I lost my essence. A lot of people gave up on me. A lot of my so-called friends took off. I became a recluse, sharing in my own home. Now, I'm a person who loves to connect. I love to talk to people. I didn't want to pick up the phone. I was hanging out on that couch. My poor dad was one of the only visitors that used to come over. And he saw the devastation. And he's the one that's basically saying, Lisa, you got to be proactive. You got to attack. The settle thing comes into play because I've seen so many people in this game of life settle. Do you know I was on the brink of suicide because I didn't think my life was worth anything. And if I chose to react, and if I chose to settle, I'm going to get very, very personal with you right now. I want to be here right now. If I reacted and I settled. See, we're going to be dealing with some big battles in our life. And if you don't go out there and learn to attack it, you can't afford to settle. Why would you accept less? Let me ask a question. If in life you only got one shot, if life is too short to wait too long, if life is truly not a dress rehearsal, why would you settle? Why would you accept less? Why? Why?
Lazy?
What's that?
Lazy?
Okay, that's part of it. Lack of belief. Lazy, lack of belief. Anyone else want to take a shot at this one? Why would you choose to settle? Why would that girl be with that same guy that's abusing her? Why? What's that?
She doesn't think she deserves better.
Beautiful. Damn it. You can't afford to settle. Think about the percentage of people who are settling and they're not happy. Well, if I chose to settle, I wouldn't be here. And I decided that I was going to start proactively attacking my OCD. I now go to all back to these doctors, and I say, Dr. So-and-so, I've been with you for 5 years. I've taken 7 of your medications, and I'm in and out of these doctor's offices with you. What I was doing, Sharon, I was professionally calling the doctor out and saying, look, on one hand, you're telling me that you're going to successfully help me in treating my OCD. You know what I told him? Can I talk to one of your patients that you've successfully treated? Can I take him or her to Tim Hortons and have coffee and sit down with them? What did the doctor say to me? Why?
Because there was no success.
Ooh, Sharon, I love that answer. That's not usually what I get first. You know what I get? They say confidentiality. They say HIPAA. That's what they say first, right? Jeremiah, I can't give you one of my patients. That's confidential. Now look at it. My talk is not to knock the doctors. But now you brought up an interesting point. Is it possible that they didn't have anybody? Maybe there wasn't any success. Well, let me give you the statistics. You can check this out too. I told you only 2% of the world's population ever get OCD to the level that I deal with, right? What if I told you that well under 5% of the 2% ever totally recover? If you got a calculator or a cell phone and you take 0.05 times 0.02, Jeremiah, it's 0.001%. 0.05 times 0.02. Why am I bringing that up to you? Those were the odds that I was up against. Most people never recover. What I did, I continued relentlessly to pursue these doctors. See, what I was trying to do, the model and mirror, I was looking for that model or mirror that would make me believe, Carmen, that I could recover. I needed to find a peer. I needed someone cheering. I needed someone to make me believe that I could do it. These medications weren't doing it. These doctors weren't doing it. These therapies weren't doing it. But I didn't find that person. My dad says, you gotta be the person. You gotta do it. Well, I attacked my OCD. And I have become relentless in my dedication of managing my illness. I did my own research. I ended up going to a world-class clinic, Jeremiah, in Philadelphia, which is the 5th largest city in the country. In 1999, I drove all by myself to the 5th largest city, 467 miles, crying and anxious all the way in my 10-year-old midnight blue Cadillac Eldorado. And there I am in another part of the country, and I'm now in a boot camp, and they're putting me through all kinds of tough stuff. I lived there for 4 to 6 weeks, and I was actually there 3 different times. A 91-year-old lady named Florence Stoneley of 3569 Indian Queen Lane of East Falls, Pennsylvania. She took me in. Now, I'll tell you how and why that happened. Here was my options. For $25,000, Lisa, for $25,000, I could go in as an inpatient, Jeremiah, into the program. $25,000. I would live in the hospital. For $10,000, I could go in as an outpatient. But the problem was the program didn't have any residential facilities. So they said, Sammy, if you could find a place to live, you could walk or drive the facility every day. Now, this is going to sound pretty crazy to you. Do you know I had them send from Philly the East Falls, Pennsylvania penny saver to my house every week? And in there were people looking for tenants. And I'm cold calling people, Jeremiah, from Buffalo. I'm cold calling people in Philly to see if they would take me in. Does that make sense to you guys, what I'm doing? I'm looking for someone that would take me in so I could go to this facility. After dozens and dozens of calls, little old Florence Stonewall, after 10 or 15 minutes, here's what she said to me, Sammy, I just lost my husband of 68 years. I have a big Victorian home a mile and a half from this world-renowned facility. But I don't know you, Sammy. You're in Buffalo and I'm in Philly. I was looking to rent it out to a person right in my neighborhood. Basically what she was saying is, I don't know if I can trust you because I don't know you. And I'm an old lady. You know, I talked to her for an hour on the phone. And she said something to me that's very, very powerful in this journey. And she said, Sammy, I believe in you. I believe that you want to get so better and improve from your OCD. The mere fact that you're willing to drive from Buffalo to Philly, you are really determined. And she goes, Sammy, come on. And I'm crying unbelievably because I can't believe, Lisa, that this woman would give me a shot. 1 hour phone call. And she became my second mother. I went there 3 different times. Like a fool, I relapsed twice because I tried to go back into my comfort zone, which was a stockbroker. Yeah, we all do that. It's called self-sabotaging behavior. Now, I believe the good Lord was saying, Sammy, I don't need you to be a stockbroker anymore. What I didn't realize, guys, that my Savior and Lord Jesus Christ, He has never ever blessed me with any biological kids. I am not a natural father. So basically what He said, Sammy, you're going to have more than enough money. I need you to go out and utilize the gift that I gave you. And I need you to go out and help a lot of forgotten people out there. But I didn't know who that was yet. I can tell you that the journey takes an amazing twist, because through all this devastation and trying to figure it all out, the 3rd time in Philadelphia, they said, Sammy, you know the course inside out. You don't need to have to keep going back and forth. You know this course inside out. The problem is you need to go back to Buffalo. And here's what they said. They said you need to find some positive activity outside of your house. Now listen to that very carefully. You need to find some positive activity outside of your house. And so, basically, I'm trying to figure out, what does that really mean? And they said, Sammy, they got to know me very, very well. You're a person that loves people. You can't stay in your house. You're going to be buried. OCD is going to take over, depression, and I knew all about that. So I had to, at 50 years old, Lisa, I had to find a way to start all over. And what I did at 50 years old is I took out a legal pad. I'm back home now. I'm crying. My wife's long gone. My mom had just passed away. My dad was in his 90s. I had no one left. My dad was right. My sister Loretta wasn't going to take care of me. My brother Nick wasn't going to take care of me. And I had to make a decision on what I was going to do the rest of my life. Well, I want to show you something. This is pretty powerful. I took out a legal pad. You've all heard the expression, today is the first day of the rest of your life. Well, that's where I was. At 50 years old. It's 2003. All right? And what I did is I pull out a pad and I wrote out 2 columns. 2 columns. Very simple concept. I'll explain it thoroughly. You'll understand it. And the one column I've got here, pluses and minuses. What this is? On the one side, things that you love to do. Your strengths. Things that you enjoy doing. On the minus side, things that you don't like to do, that you hate to do. Your weaknesses, your limitations. Now, from a spiritual side here, one of the greatest lessons that I really believe, it might be the greatest lesson in our life. I'm going to ask you the question. Do you think there's a reason why you were brought on earth? Have you ever thought about it? Do you realize that you have a gift or talent that's unique to you? I believe the good Lord has given us a major reason for coming down on earth. He's given us a gift, a talent, a skill set. But He doesn't want us to use it for our own gain. He wants to use it to serve him in his kingdom. Again, this was all very foreign to me. I still didn't quite understand what it meant. But there I was trying to figure this out. Now, watch how this all comes together. This will be a good indicator of how well we're listening, all right? What did I tell the guidance counselors at Kenmore West that I wanted to be? Do you remember?
Teacher, coach.
Okay. So if I go over to the pluses and minuses, on the plus side, mentoring, coaching, counseling, life coach, teaching, motivating, and kids. Where does that come from? That's the Philip Sherman playground. That's where I was, my sanctuary. That's where I was happiest. I told you, in my first 60 years, I've never been more happy than working with these kids. Never been more happy in working in this environment. This is my ultimate gift, but I didn't know it. It took me 50 years to get to this point. I had to go through all this devastation, all this hurt, the brink of suicide, and I know you've all heard this statement. Let go and let God. Guys, I was on my hands and knees crying at my bedside for years. You know, for many years, I was mad at God because I thought he put me through all this devastation. But for some reason I said, God, you didn't bring me here. You didn't take me this far. You didn't give me these skill sets for me to go yet, did you? I don't think it was time for me to go yet. Where do you want me to go? Where do you want me to go? You've all heard this expression? Sometimes the good Lord puts you on your hands and knees, and the only place that you can look is up. That's where I was at, Jeremiah. Hands and knees, crying at my bedside, God, I can't do it anymore. See, here's the paradox. Here's the conflict. Here's the contradiction in our world. We have two scorecards, okay? It's very, very interesting. Two scorecard. The one card, I actually wrote out a scorecard, like that. The one card is called the man's scorecard. All right? Let me tell you what's on the man's scorecard. Self-centered. Job, career, money, power, greed, entitlement, wealth, pride, house, cars, toys. I control my own destiny. How about this one? Remember I told you about if it's to be, it's up to me. That's self-centeredness. All right, now I'm going to give you something. You've probably never heard this one before. Ego. Ego, I'm going to give you an acronym today. EGO. You ready? Ego, EGO, stands for edging God out. Edging God out. You know what the lesson is? You can't have ego and you can't have God at the same time. One is self-centered, one is greed, one is power-driven, and the other is selfless. Two years ago, I was asked to be a keynote speaker at the Catholic Men's Conference in front of 1,200 men at O'Hara High School. This is the card I had. It's taped because what I did, Sharon, in the middle of the audience, I ripped the card up and I threw it away. Because this card will only lead to disappointment and frustration and a void in your life that you'll never ever fulfill. That's the paradox. That's the problem That's the challenge, Jeremiah, we have in our life today. This card here is what the world is selling. That's why most of us are caught up in this world. We are caught up in the world of capitalism. That's why you see people chasing. That's why you see all of these things, one thing after another on TV, one devastation after another. You'll see it, politicians, all this abuse, all of these things is because it's a self-centered world. But these people, and I was there, hook, line, and sinker, it always fell short. It always fell short of me being happy. What I learned as I went through the journey, I ended up going, and I started doing some networking. I told you about, I found a roadmap now, teaching, coaching, mentoring, right? And now I'm talking to different people, I'm networking around, and 10 years ago, I meet this person by the name of Sylvia Nadler. Sylvia Nadler was the executive director at Compass House. Now, I didn't know what Compass House was. Mike told you a little while ago what a Compass House was, but remember now, I'm 50 years old, I had no idea. I'm sitting with her at the town restaurant. A friend of mine, Tommy Ehlers, introduced me to her, and she goes, Sammy, do you know anything about Compass House? I go, no, Sylvia, I don't. She goes, well, let me tell you about Compass House. It says, we serve homeless, runaway, troubled, at-risk kids. Now, there's a stereotype here. And I had to ask her some questions. And I go, Sylvia, are some of these kids coming from drugs or alcohol problems? What did she say? Yes. I said, are some of these kids getting kicked out of school? What did she say? Are some of these kids coming from gangs? What's the thing she said? Now remember, I have an anxiety disorder, OCD. My anxiety is going through the roof. I'm looking to volunteer. I'm looking for a spot to get out of my house to help me with my OCD. Why would I go in something that could provoke my OCD? I go, Sylvia, out of fear, out of anxiety, I go, yes, I want to help kids. I go, why don't I just coach the girls' softball team in Snyder? You know why we laugh? Because that's our comfort zone. That's what we do. That's what human beings always can do. We go back to that comfort zone. Back to that comfort zone. Well, the good Lord didn't want me to be in the comfort zone. Because Sylvia said something to me that's probably more powerful. Now, everyone's going to say the three magic words. The three magic words that most people will say are the best three words that you can tell a person is, Lindsay, I love you. Carmi, I love you. But I think there's something even more powerful than, I love you. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's 4 words. Sharon, I believe in you. Lisa, I believe in you. And when you've had your cage rattled as far and as much as I have, those were the words that allowed me to feel that I was needed one more time in my life. And you know what she told me too? She said, Sammy, you've got an amazing, positive energy. Anyone that gets to know me, your enthusiasm, your energy, your fire, your passion is second to none. And she said, I didn't know she was going to say this, Sharon. She goes, Sammy, our kids need you. How do I walk away from that? So in 2004, in February of 2004, I make the greatest leap of faith. Out of fear and anxiety, I now leave the comforts of Williamsville, and I'm about to tell you that I'm going consistently in the darkest sides of the third poorest city of the country. It's started out in February of '04 at Compass House. I have just celebrated 10 years as a coach, mentor for kids that don't have 2 nickels to rub together. They don't have any mothers or fathers in their lives. It's very different from where we are here. Very different. Most of those kids are being thrown out of their houses. Pimps, prostitutes, drug addicts. I can't begin to tell you the world that the Lord opened up to me. I have a letter from the director in that red notebook that's probably worth thousands and thousands, maybe millions of dollars to me. It's by Lisa Freeman, who's the new executive director, who was the assistant for many, many years. And in the letter it says, Sammy V has influenced, impacted over 3,000 kids in the last 10 years. I'm very, very proud of that. I can tell you that my journey has grown immensely. This is a listing of what I'm doing today. There's 15 different organizations on here that I volunteer for. I don't get 1 red cent for anything I do. On here, Gateway Longview, Big Brother Big Sister program, Boys and Girls Club, Cradle Beach Camp, Camp Good Days, Make-A-Wish Foundation. Has anyone ever heard of an organization called Plymouth Crossroads? I bet you haven't. Check that one out. Plymouth Crossroads. It's in Lancaster, not that far from here. It's a shelter for homeless boys, Jeremiah, between 12 and 19 years old. And I'm usually there every Tuesday night. God has opened up a door that I never, ever would have entered. I've taken the gift that He gave me, and I said, God, I'm done following this scorecard. It's left misery, frustration, and disappointment. And that ego, that self-centered world, continues to fall short. If you've ever read the book, Pastor Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Life, it talks a lot about man's scorecard versus God's scorecard. Let me tell you about God's scorecard, all right? On here, it's a Christ-centered, other-centered, self-centered. Selfless. So what basically the transition is going from a self-centered world to an other-centered world to a selfless world. Does that make sense? Okay. On here, letting go and letting God. Serving Him, helping others, forgiveness, reconciliation, confession, being obedient, humble, following Him, listening to Him, grace, love, kindness, belief, faith. Now here's the greatest lesson. I'm sure as you develop your faith, and here we are obviously in the house of God, the greatest lesson is by leading a Christ-centered world. Put God in first place, and He'll take you to places beyond your wildest dreams. Can I tell you, since I've been following God's path, the journey has grown immensely. I told you in '04, it started out with the Compass Houses of the world. For 5 years, it was Gateway, Big Brother, Compass House, all these homeless kids. And there I was dedicating my gift to these kids, helping resurrect these kids' lives. Now, I'm not resurrecting their life. I am basically God's vessel, okay? He is using me, without question. He's using me to take my gift to serve him and his people. But what if I told you that in the last 10 years, as I have been following God's path and the direction that he has put me in, what if I told you, listen very carefully, as I continue to manage a very severe form of OCD, number one, no more doctors. Number two, no more therapy. Number three, no more treatment. And number four, no more medications. How is that possible?
Letting go and letting God.
Letting go and letting God.
Serving.
With God, all things are possible. Guys, in '09, I was asked to run a major OCD support group. The last 5 years, I've worked with hundreds of people that are dealing with the same disease as I am. I run a support group at the corner of Delaware and West Utica, the Mental Health Association at 999 Delaware. All right? That's on my list. It's actually number one. I actually rank these. It's the most important thing I do because I'm getting a chance to give back to the people that are hurting like I am. Okay? Number two on this list, in 2010, God has asked me to share my witness story, my recovery story, and I'm going into places beyond my wildest dreams. I've been in mental health facilities. I've been in drug centers. I've been in the middle of prisons. I've been in front of 3-time sex offenders, kidnappers, murderers. I've been in churches. I've been in schools. I've been in youth centers. I've been in the middle of Moselle, Christian Human Services. I have 5 binders. That's my 2014. I have 4 more binders at home. I have over 350 reference letters. I have done 1,287 presentations with 347 different agencies, including the wonderful Morlock Foundation today, which happens to deal with serving foster kids and families and getting them in the right direction. What's this all about? It's no longer about me. There's a statement, I think it's by Pablo Picasso. You can check this out. The meaning of life is to find your ultimate gift that God gave you. The purpose of life is to give it away. As I put a bow on this, as you notice, I haven't looked at any type of sheets or reading things. This is not something that's coming off, a script or so. But there's a very, very powerful part of my talk as I wrap this up, and then we're going to open up the questions, is that what have I learned? What do I want to share with you today? It's my top 10 or 12 that I can basically share this with all my fellow brothers and sisters. I want to take it from here because I want to make sure that we nail it. So what have I truly learned through this amazing transformation? Number one, the greatest contributor to my resurrection, by getting me out of the black hole, getting me through all of this mess, was to go out and follow God's path and help a person that was less fortunate than I was. Does that make sense? You know, if you're feeling bad, why don't you go down to a children's hospital and go look at the kids in there and see what they're dealing with. Next month, I go down to Cuca Lake. I've been doing this for 10 years. And I'm a main counselor for little kids that have cancer. My life is changed forever. Something when people say, Sammy, what's driving you? Why do you do all this? Have you ever heard the expression, my greatest receiving is when I'm giving? My greatest receiving is when I'm giving. By going through the transformation of the self-centered world that I was in, by going to other-centered and then going to selfless, how is it possible that now I am experiencing the greatest level of happiness, the greatest level of inner peace, and the greatest level of true success? Now, look at it, guys. Because I'm living it, I now believe it. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I've been in and out of that Bible. I've been in and out of all kind of churches. I've been in and out of all different ministers. And there's no disrespect to any of that. I still didn't believe it. I now believe. Why? I'm living it. And what fuels the fire that I go to the Carmelita Zandies of the world and say, look at, you need to get me up in front of some people, because I have a very powerful message that has to be delivered. How is it possible from going from self-centered to other-centered to selfless? How is it possible that now I am experiencing the greatest level of happiness, inner peace, and true success? There's no coincidence to that, guys. That is God's scorecard. This will never disappoint. In fact, my sister Loretta, who for many, many years has been a devout Christian at New Covenant Tabernacle, and now is over at the chapel. When I told her about the greatest level of happiness, Sharon, you know what she said to me? Sammy, you know what that's called? That's called joy. And there's a gentleman named Father Larry Richards, who I saw at St. Greg's last year. Listen to this. You know what joy stands for? J-O-Y. J is peace with Jesus. O, peace with others. And Y, peace with yourself. That's true joy. And I'm living that. Success is not the key to happiness, but happiness is the key to success. You understand that one? I am now 110% convinced that the Lord pushed me out, He kicked me out, He pulled me out of the investment business for this bigger and better path by following Him. Norman Vincent, the secret to success in life is not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you. I use a very motivational thing. I do a lot of work with kids. How about this statement? An eagle only soars when it flies against the wind. What does that mean? An eagle only soars when it flies against the wind. Anyone want to take a shot at that one? What's the win in life?
Adversity.
Wow. What's her name? What's that over there?
Yeah.
Adversity? What's your first name?
Paul.
Thank you. Adversity. And how would you define adversity? How would we define the word adversity?
Trials, tribulation.
Trials and tribulations. How about if I give you a new definition of adversity today? You ready? Adversity equals opportunity. The eagle only soars, it rises above, it becomes greater. Why? It has to battle through adversity. And that's essentially my story, Paul, is because by God allowing all this adversity in my life, it has fueled me to find and seek His path, not my path. It's no longer about me, it's about following Him and following the world that He wants me to continue to serve. How about this statement? In order to truly find yourself, you have to lose yourself. That's Mother Teresa. In order to truly find yourself, you have to lose yourself. You ever heard this expression? You have to go through Good Friday to get to Resurrection Sunday. The game of life. How about this one? You only get to truly keep what you're willing to give away. You only get to truly keep what you're willing to give away. Those that exalt themselves will be humbled. And those that humble themselves will be exalted. The most vital reason for our existence, is to serve God and His people. I told you, with God, all things are possible. With belief and with God, all things are possible. How about this statement here? You make a living on what you get, what you take, what you make. You make a living on what you get, but you make a life on what you give. You make a living on what you get, you make a life on what you get. Guys, there's no question that I have learned some amazing things in this journey. And I want to make sure that you understand, by following God and following His lead and taking your ultimate gift, you can have a life beyond your wildest dreams. Why? Because I'm living it to them. And remember when I told you, sometimes God puts you on your hands and knees. And the only place that you can look is up. Well, thank you, God. I now know why I was put on this earth. Thank you very much. Questions, comments, feedback? I have a Jaguar out there. But you know what? It doesn't have the same importance anymore. You know what? What's your first name? Gerald? Joe, I'm sorry. You know what? And Mike said earlier, You know what's my Cadillac and what my Jaguars are today? When people come up to me, it happened to me yesterday at South Park. I'm doing talks all over. This kid comes up to me. He goes, Sammy, you saved my life today. I asked him what his name is. He says his name is Andre. I said, well, why do you say that? He said, because you made me believe that I could do something in my life. So, Joel, that's my new Cadillac. Make sense? Any other feedback? Thoughts? Comments? I asked you, the last part I was going to give you with was, I call it the takeaways. All right? Now we're going to have a little fun right now. I've been working for close to 2 hours now. Now I'm going to ask you if we can do one little fun thing. Is that 8 minutes to 12, 10 to 12? What are we looking here? Okay, this is perfect. Here's what we're going to do. Can we go around the room, just say your first name, and give me one takeaway. Or two, if you're feeling good this morning. Give me 1 or 2 takeaways of what you picked up from my story. I'm going to say conservatively, there's probably 15 to 20 major life lessons that I threw at you today. You can go very spiritual. We can go on the God side, which is absolutely my favorite part. We can talk about life lessons. But what's resonating now up here? Is that cool? Can we do that? All right? Lindsay, you're the closest one. All right? So here's what we're going to do. I want you to give me your first name and give me 1 or 2 takeaways. Does everyone know what a takeaway is? A takeaway is something you learned or you picked up. Fair? Any questions? Comments? Now, if you're all going to take notes, you all would be passing this. But I know one thing, Mike's seen this many, many times. Watch what happens now, Carmi. This is the best part, Jeremiah. And I don't know whether you got this on video, but this is the best part of the whole thing, because now you are going to basically bring back to everyone what you learned. All right? Lindsay? All right. I have to know Lindsay. Go ahead, kiddo.
Okay, my name's Lindsay. I really like what you said about
Life is not dress rehearsal, guys. You only got one shot, right? Thanks, Lindsay. Carmen.
For me, in a spiritual sense, if it's gonna be up to me, I can make a difference for
Only takes one. Very powerful, Carmen. Thanks. Sam. You could do anything that you put your mind to. That's a great life lesson, Sam. Tremendous. Thank you very much. She said, you don't have to let other people control what you do in your life. You can control what you want to do, right? How powerful is that, guys? Good stuff. What's your first name? Storm? Like the storm? All right. Go ahead, Storm. What'd you get? Jeremiah, if we don't have that on video, man, throw the rest of the tape out. It's that, Mike, I don't know if you heard what this lovely little girl just said. Storm, can you say it one more time? Can you say it a little louder too? How about if you look at the audience? I think you're ready to go on and show business here. All right, go ahead.
You can't just push God out of your life. You need to have God in your life. Some people don't believe in God, but Christians should believe in God for their whole entire life.
Why don't we give someone a round of applause? Lisa,
I like, if it's meant to be, it's up to me.
if it's to be, it's up to me. Powerful, guys.
My name is Sam, and
Sam, like Samantha?
yeah.
I'm Sam, I like your name too. All right, go ahead. Now let's loud because I want everyone to hear this.
I learned that no matter how hard the situation is or how involved you are in it, you shouldn't give up.
Never give up. Wow. If we walk away from that one today, no matter how hard storm, no matter how difficult the storm is, we gotta learn to dance in the rain. Right? It's not the crazy storm, it's how we dance in the rain. Excellent. That was great.
My name is Sharon, and I'll say I have OCD. I've been in treatment, the whole thing. And there's always a part of me that wants to control situations.
Yes, I can relate to that.
I am a member of this church. I believe Lord Jesus Christ is my Savior. I know that He controls what happens to me, and I have a purpose. My problems come in when I want to control them.
Yes.
So I have to always remind myself, let go and let God. When I am doing service for people, for His people, I am also at my happiest. But there's things in that whole success that I still have concern and worry, and one of them is money. And if it's not the overwhelming greed or power or anything like that, I just always have that little bit of concern that in retirement or whatever you want to call it, am I going to have my health insurance? Am I going to do this? So I don't always let go and let God. And when I do that, the OCD gets, when I don't do that, when I don't let God, let go and let God, the OCD, all the issues that come with checking, making sure doors are locked, washing my hands excessively, do the whole,
Yeah.
my own little bit.
Yeah.
So when I'm at peace is when I let Him do it, but I fight it. So you put me back on where I have to just focus on what He wants out of me.
Let me show you something, Sharon. There's 4 words. Intense belief fuels passion. I can relate to exactly where you were. Now remember, this is a 10-year journey. I was diagnosed in 92, 22 years, but this is a 10-year journey now. Now, I'm not showing this to impress you, but this is my calendar. Okay? Now, here's what's going on. Because I now believe, do you think I have time to sit home and wrestle with God anymore? I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm trying to explain to you that what has happened is, over a period of time, God has said, Sammy, put me in first place. I'll take care of the rest. It's very difficult, but that's what's happened in my life. I also want to support you. If you want to talk to me after, I'm around, okay? All right, thank you very much, Sharon. All right, how about this pretty girl right there? What's your name? Chelsea. What'd you pick up, kiddo?
I learned that you can't pity yourself and expect something to change. You have to attack the problem.
Attack the problem. That's good, Chelsea. Thank you. You like that? Tell me why you like that.
Because I always have to collect babies, and it might stop me from that.
Look at that. Look at that. Good stuff. All right. What do we got over here? Angelica is a very pretty name. She said, I like the part that said, God has put us on this earth for a reason. How good is that? Thank you, sweetheart.
I am then, I love foster care, like Carmen does, and sometimes when everything is so out of control and everything's going downhill, you just want to scream and give up and you're taking over stuff and I learned that no matter what, there's a need for what we do is important, what we do and not to give up and keep plugging away and pushing through and just to put aside, you see much better results.
Perfect. That's good stuff. Thank you. Hi, Nicole. Beautiful. See, there's a recurring theme here, guys. Part of this is, we've been battered down. Our life batters us down, and we lose self-confidence. And we get down on ourselves. And then we don't know where to turn. And there's a lot here about overcoming adversity, never giving up, keep going. We all need to do that. We all need to do that. Thank you very much.
My name's Paul,
Hi, Paul.
and I believe what your, the gist of your whole speech is more or less, like you were talking about the guy who had so much, but yet didn't have what you had. And it comes down to, we only have one life, it's going to pass, and only what's done for Christ can last.
That's the ultimate lesson, guys. It's hard to get there because we live in such a self-centered world. But once we get and understand other-centered and selfless and following God in His path and serving Him, like Paul has just said, now we're going to find true happiness. Thank you very much.